This show today is kind of a journey, an experience, because I'm going to tell you about a speaker that's put me through some serious changes because it's such a different and in many ways a better sounding speaker than I usually get to review. And it's a review of the PureAudioProject Duet15 Prelude. It's actually the revised version of the Prelude. Now, well, if you look at it from the front, it looks like a box speaker. But you look around back and you'll see there's no box. It's an open baffle design. And that is a difference. I mean, it sounds so different than other speakers. But not just that. What it does is it lets me hear differences in recordings from one to the next. I mean, after all, each recording I play was recorded in probably a different studio. I'm playing different artists, different studios, different microphones, different engineers, different everything. And then I just hear so much of that difference with this speaker. Probably more than any other speaker I've ever heard. I can't say that, but it's way up there, way up there in terms of hearing differences, especially in the spatial aspects of recordings. That some of them sound very flat and 2D, and some are really just like popping out. You're just inhabiting the room, just coming alive in my room. I'll tell you a little bit about the speaker. It's a two-way speaker with an 8-inch full-range driver made by Voxative in Germany, actually handmade in Germany. The woofer is a 15-inch woofer, but it's designed for open baffle use. It is made by Eminence in the USA. The baffle is birch ply, comes in a variety of colors, and the panel, by the way, is made in New York, upstate New York. The crossover network is all top-shelf components made by Muldorf in Germany, and the wiring in the speaker is made by Vandenhull. So, serious componentry in this speaker. It is a modular design, meaning that you can change out parts of the speaker. They offer upgrades to crossovers and drivers and everything. And you at home, the consumer, can easily do this on your own without any special tools or skills, which I think makes it's a speaker that you can potentially grow with or just stay with it as it is. Again, really nice. Comes with a 5-year warranty, and there will be an Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. And actually, today's viewer system is, I'll give you a hint right up front, has PureAudioProject speakers in the system. Now the price, well, it depends on the options, the finishes, and all that stuff, but the price starts at, the US price is $6,490 a pair. PureAudioProject sells direct worldwide. There's no local distributors. They ship directly from Europe and also directly from the United States to wherever, right? That's really cool. And here are the Duet15's specs. And since this speaker has a 15-inch woofer, well, yeah, I'm going to compare it to the Klipsch Cornwall IV. Well, that also has a 15-inch woofer. And that comparison was really, really interesting because the Cornwall IV has been my long-term reference now for 3 years. And yeah, a head-to-head comparison will follow later on in this review. Setup was pretty straightforward, but it did take time because these speakers are sensitive to placement and sensitive to toe-in. Their tonal balance changes with toe-in, the angle of the toe-in. And I used a bunch of different amplifiers. Now, we're all used to hearing woofers in boxes, either sealed boxes or ported boxes. And they have a sound, and they can sound really great, and they can sound powerful and deep and all that stuff. But they don't sound as clear as an open baffle speaker, a well-designed open baffle speaker. And here's my theory as to why. Any woofer that's in a box is putting a lot of energy into the inside of the box. And some of that is absorbed within the box, but some of it re-radiates out through the woofer itself. So you're hearing the direct sound of the woofer, and then you're hearing the sound from within the box that's, let's say, leaking through the woofer or re-radiating through the woofer, which has the effect of slowing it down. Just my theory. And of course, then there's the pressure within the box that's different from outside the box in your room, right? So when the woofer is moving back and compressing the air inside that box, it's working against that pressure, and an open baffle woofer doesn't do that. The pressure on the woofer from the front of the open baffle speaker and the rear is exactly the same. Now, I'm not an engineer and I'm not a techie, but to me, that's probably the reason why they sound so good. And in the case of the PureAudioProject, it's the same for the Voxita full range driver, that there's no pressure behind it, right? It's the same front and rear. So it has this incredibly open, fast sound. Similar to, I'm looking at the Magnepan LRS Plus right over here. Yeah, Magnepans do the same thing. But Magnepan bass does not sound like this. It just doesn't. It's not as fast, it's not as clear as the Duet15. It's in a different league. A different sounding animal, let's put it that way. So the other thing that grabbed me about this speaker is the center focus is very focused. You know, singers that are in the center spot there, they're right there. They are right there. And yet, the stereo image can be huge and wide and deep and forward and go back behind the plane of the speaker. It just sounds like, well, the music is set free by this speaker in ways that box speakers, can I say never do? Well, let's say rarely do it to this degree. So when I'm listening to Beatles records now with this speaker, I'm so much more aware of hearing Paul's, playing his notes, where before I was just sort of there, I could hear them, but not as clearly as I hear them over this speaker. And then hearing Paul and Ringo's interplay and how they're working off each other, yeah, that kind of stuff comes through this speaker with just ease. It doesn't seem to be working very hard to convey this music, this energy. The PureAudioProject is phenomenal on piano. This Dick Hyman Plays Duke Ellington CD is so good, and it sounds more like a life-size piano. Not literally like there's a 9-foot grand materializing in my room, but that sense of a very large instrument. And Dick Hyman's shading of each note, the dynamic shifts from how he was playing come through so well. But it's the piano's overall tonality is way, way, way above average. So next up was this Bob Dylan mono box. Now this is all of his recordings that were originally released in mono and stereo. These are the mono versions. And on his really early recordings, the stereo versions have Bob in one channel and his guitar in the other channel. And on the mono, they're united and back to Bob and the guitar being in the same place. But anyway, I'm listening in mono, which isn't my usual preference, but just digging how well that translates over this speaker, because the mono image makes more sense. Maybe that's the way of putting it. The mono imaging makes more sense over this speaker than it does on most other speakers that have passed through this room. So, yeah. Bob Dylan, man, and there's also there's tonal differences between the mono and stereo Bob Dylans, and I gotta say, in these early recordings especially, the mono versions do just sound more natural beyond the imaging differences. One other thing I want to talk about the bass is that though it has a 15-inch woofer, the bass doesn't go, at least in my room, super deep. It's not the kind of bass that, pressurizes your chest. It's not that kind of sound. It's about speed more than going down really low. So I did spend some time in the review using the REL HT1003 Mark II sub with it. And that blending was really easy to do. And it definitely made the speaker sound, as this usually is the case, like a bigger speaker. Now, for me personally, I wouldn't go through life listening with the sub. It's just not, that part of the music spectrum isn't that important to me. So, and I would think that most people that buy this speaker would not be using it with subs. I'm just mentioning this, that it's adaptable to be used with subs if that's your thing. If you listen to a lot of electronic music or dance music that you want to really shake the room, you would probably want to add a sub, but it's definitely definitely not mandatory that you would need to. As for the comparison between the Cornwall IV and the Duet15 Prelude, really interesting. They're both phenomenal speakers. The Cornwalls have been here for 3 years as my reference, and this speaker is definitely a challenger to the Cornwalls. Now I will say the Cornwalls being a three-way speaker with horn mid-range and horn tweeter, it is a more alive sounding speaker. It plays louder with greater ease. The bass goes deeper and punchier. It's got more power to it. It does all of those things. But it sounds more like sound coming out of a box. It sounds more like, well, a hi-fi. And when you go to the Prelude, it sounds more like real people playing music. The tonality of the mid-range is so much better. The speed of the bass, that nimble quality is just, there's no comparison between the Cornwall and this one and the Prelude. There's so much to it. The spatial imaging is so much bigger and open and has depth and space, and that difference of hearing sound from one recording to the next, how different one sounds to the next, those differences are much easier to hear and enjoy over the Duet15 Prelude. So yeah, it's not like one just stomps all over the other. It's a personal taste thing, and I love them both. I truly do. And I have a thing about 15-inch woofers for this reason, that once you really spend time with a 15, if your room is big enough to handle something that big, it's hard to go back and listen to a speaker with a 10-inch woofer. It just sounds small, right? And adding a sub to a smaller speaker can make up for some of that difference, no doubt. But it's not the same thing as having the main source of the bass coming from a 15-inch driver. You know, there's no substitute for size. It just isn't. Bigger in speakers is, assuming the room can handle it, bigger is better. Yeah, I think I've learned that over all these decades of listening to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of speakers. Bigger ones in terms of sounding more like real people playing music, yeah, bigger ones are usually better. So I'm playing Simon & Garfunkel live in Central Park. This was in the early 80s. I was there for this concert along with 500,000 other people. And it was incredible. And this recording actually does a really good job of capturing the vibe of that night, that very special night. And this song, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover, with the drum pattern and Simon & Garfunkel, it's goosebump territory. And I will say that the Duet15's way with rhythm, it's just so rhythmically alive. You just can't help but move to the sound coming out of the speaker. That's true for the Cornwall, but I would say this one is even better. Oh, you know, and then I love the acoustic numbers. Paul and Art and 500,000 New Yorkers. Now these guys are from New York, by the way. And the intimacy, the connection between the performers and the crowd is so beautiful. And like I said, I was there for it, and listening to this recording, it just brings it all back home. And these speakers let it happen. They just let it pass through. More intact than, yeah, I've ever heard it before. Okay, so now it's time for, so Steve, what do you really think of the PureAudioProject Duet15 Prelude? I think I'm in love. I think this is a keeper. I think this one's going to stick around for a while because it's just pressing all the right buttons for me. And where I started on this review saying how each recording from one to the next sounds so different, that I'm hearing more music, I'm hearing more information coming off these recordings, whether they're on LP or CD or files. I'm getting more from it, and that just lights me up. You know, it's lighting up the room. It's just engaging me in this different way, and you know, I think the open baffle is a big part of the reason it's happening, but I think it's the way They just put this package together with the Voxative driver and the Eminence 15 and the crossover. There's something about the combination of these elements that's just making it happen. So yeah, I am knocked out by the sound of this speaker. And now it's time for the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day with PureAudioProject speakers. It's just a coincidence that these things aligned in time because they almost never do. But that's what we're going to be in for with this one. Hey, this one comes from Philip. He lives in China and he has two systems. System number one has an acoustic signature Thunder turntable with a TA1000 12-inch tone arm with a Kaseki Purple Heart cartridge. Second arm is a TA2000 with a Neo 9-inch arm and an EAT Yosegi cartridge. The second turntable is a Garrard 401 that's been modified and restored, and the tone arm is an SME 3010 with an Audiophon SPU cartridge. There's a Revox B77 Mark I reel-to-reel recorder. For digital, there's a Synology NAS drive with a Sonic Biter 17 running Rune, a Melco digital network switch, SoundAware D300 ref player, Denafreps Terminator DAC, and a Denafreps Avatar CD transport. The amplification, the phono amplification, is a Vandenhall The Grail phono preamp. I have one of those. There's a Manley SS 300B preamplifier and a Manley Neoclassic SE PP 300B. Those are monoblocks. The speakers, those are the PureAudioProjects. They're Trio 15 Classics with Voxative drivers. System number two features a Michel hydraulic reference turntable circa 1975 with an SME 3009 Series 2 tone arm with an Audiophon 2M bronze cartridge. There's a Technics RSB 555 cassette deck. The digital is much the same as system number one with an addition of a Metrum Ombre file player, Metrum Jade NOS digital preamplifier and DAC, and a Shanling CDT 100C CD player with new old stock tubes. Amplification is an EAT Glow Petite phono preamp, and then there's a Brinkmann preamplifier, a Lieben CS600 integrated amp only used as a power amplifier. The speakers are Spender Classic 3.5s or vintage Harbeth LS35As on spotless stands. And the acoustic treatments for both rooms are by Acoustic Labor. Thanks, Philip. Okay, we are back, and my name is Steve Guttenberg, and I am the Audiophiliac. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, by far the best way to support the channel is to join my Patreon. There's different levels to it. Check out the website. The address is on the screen right now. But I will mention that Patreon accepts payment in dollars, pounds, and euros. And if you like what I'm doing here, sure, just hit the like button and you could subscribe and join the over 220,000 people that have already done so. And by the way, an extra special thanks that I just recently reached 50 million views. 50 million views in 5 years. So thank you to everyone who's ever watched my show. And with that, I could say my work here is at last complete. The fire engines are coming. I don't know if you can hear them. And again, so thank you so much for watching. And I really do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.